Inventing exercises. Let's talk about that for a minute. So here's the first thing I want to bring to your attention. Every single exercise that you're doing right now was invented by someone or some group. Fact of the matter is that when you come out of your mother's womb, you're not thinking about squat, bench press, deadlift. No. These movements were created by men. Men with the creative genius to think of the primal movement patterns, what would apply in terms of general lifts, and so a lot of these exercises were born. And the thing is, a lot of the exercises back then, which were considered unconventional, are now very conventional, and you guys take it for granted. I'll give you an example, the flat barbell bench press. In the 1800s and the early 1900s, this exercise was never performed. Never. It was the overhead press and typically other movements that you probably never heard of today. So strength standards are constantly evolving, and so is exercise selection. And the bench press is a rather new exercise that millions of gym bros all over the world are performing today. But you take it for granted because you don't know that a long time ago, actually not even 100 years ago, people were not even doing the bench press exercise. So it took someone with the creative genius to identify the movement pattern of horizontal pressing and say, okay, why the fuck are we not doing this on a bench? Because back then they would either do it off the floor or they would just overhead press. So every single exercise that you're doing right now was created by someone, and with time, these exercises were known as conventional lifts. But back then, they were not conventional. They were unconventional, and therefore, if you did them, it'd be considered a little bit weird. So that said, in the modern day world, right? Do I have a problem with people inventing exercises? No. I don't have a problem because history, it is what it is. History shows us that creative people come in and they add little tweaks to things. They invent things and things get better. Like in my opinion, the moment you stop trying to improve yourself, or the moment you think you have all the answers, you're dead, okay? You stagnate. Whatever stagnates, dies. So if you're constantly trying to think of new ways of spicing up your training, that's all good in my books, provided that you have a lot of training experience. You can't just be some noob who's training for 3 months and then you decide to train. No, you need to have a lot of experience with regular lifts, right? Secondly, you have to have an understanding of exercise science and actually make sure that what you're doing has sport-specific applications or bodybuilding applications, whatever you're trying to do it for. But in terms of inventing exercise itself, everything that we do today was an invention of someone or some group, all right? And if we look at the modern day era, some of the top strength coaches or some of the top exercises we do right now were invented not too long ago. And I'll give you an example. In powerlifting, you guys got the JM press. Before J.M. Blakely came along, people thought the only way to raise your bench was by doing close grip bench and extensions in terms of like those two movements, right? But then J.M. Blakely came along and said, okay, how about we combine both into one? So he invented the jam press. And now thousands of powerlifters all over the world do this lift. And some of them don't even know the origins of it, which is mind-boggling to me. But you see, that's an example right there of a modern person. In strongman, you guys got Zijunas, right? One of the strongest overhead pressers in the world. And what was his lift? The Z press. Sitting down on the floor with your legs straight and overhead pressing. Basically, it's the strictest overhead press of all time. And before him, no one was doing this lift, right? So he created an exercise that has benefited thousands of lifters all over the world. Bodybuilders, powerlifters, and strongmen alike, right? For bodybuilding, we got John Meadows, who made the rear delt swing and the Meadows row extremely popular. And he was also one of the guys who started using bands for bodybuilding purposes. He would attach bands to several machines to accommodate the resistance because he realized that the strength curves were off, right? And then, of course, we got my favorite, Louis Simmons, right? Louis Simmons created the reverse hyperextension machine, perfected it, patented it, right? And now it's sold all over the world to all kinds of different sport teams and powerlifters alike. So sometimes it's a good idea to invent exercises, If you actually have an understanding of how the body works and you have experience, I say, why the fuck not? If you can make the world a better place with sharing these special moves, like to me, that's all good, So no, I'm not opposed to the creation of exercises. I think it's a great thing if you actually know what you're doing. And I know Athlete X, for example, does it all the time. He's a physiotherapist, right? So he has an understanding of how the body works. And then what he does is he tweaks things that already exist, He tweaks it, he makes it better, and there you go. And that's going to bring me on to my second point, the tweaking of exercises. This is a good thing. This is a very good thing because now we could find more effective ways of performing a lift. That is not a bad thing in my book. I'll give you an example about the Z press. Zijunas thought of the idea of overhead pressing on the floor with a barbell and doing it off pins. Well, my friend actually took that to the next level. He got rid of the barbell and instead started Z pressing with dumbbells. 2 dumbbells at the same time, 1 dumbbell, and guess what? Even doing Z pressing with bands. with double bands, non-double bands, even reverse. So you see what I'm saying here? When you actually have an understanding of exercise science and how to apply these concepts on certain lifts, you can make it even better. And that's what my friend did. He did the same thing for the landmine press. The landmine Z press, that's his creation, where you sit down on the floor and you do a landmine press, you know? Or how about adding a band to the landmine press, given the weird joint angles, you know what I'm saying? This is called improving an exercise. I would say the camber bar bench press is an improvement over the regular bench because it allows for deeper range of motion. Hence, you'll build more bottom strength. That's another example right there. So there's nothing wrong with improving what already exists. A great example would have to be the nether row, right? Shout out to Through the Twisting Nether. Guys, check out his channel. He has over 20 years of lifting experience. He's the most jacked natural, arguably in YouTube fitness. He's fucking massive. Great guy, very genuine. You're going to love his stuff. He has all kinds of unconventional lifts that he invented, and he's improving upon things that already exist. And one of those examples would be the nether row. It's basically a meadows row, but without using your arms. Like you're shrugging. And this allows you to work your rhomboids, your upper back, everything very easily. Same thing for the T-bar row. He thought, okay, why bend the arms when you could just keep them straight and then kind of shrug into it? So you see, that's called improving an exercise, right? And I don't have a problem with it, provided that you actually know what you're doing. Again, if you're a noob, you're probably not going to have this power. But once you have a lot of experience and understanding of how things work, exercise science-wise, you can definitely improve upon things that already exist. And that's what it's all about, being creative. And then the final thing about inventions, right, would have to be the substitution of certain exercises. I'll give you an example. The other day, someone sent me a clip of a guy in a gym field, right? The video had over 1 million views and a lot of likes, which kind of disturbed me. But it was essentially a guy doing a neck extension on a leg curl / leg extension machine. He was bent over on all fours, you know, like a dog, and he was extending his neck. When I saw this, I thought it was genius. I thought it was pure genius, and I saw no reason why this would be in a gym fail compilation video. Like, to me, that's absolute madness. Like, videos like that don't deserve to be fails, because all kinds of fighters over the world are doing this, and it's a great substitution lift for guys that don't have a head harness. And in my eyes, I don't give a shit how weird an exercise looks. If you're performing the function of a given muscle, that's fine. This is neck extension. Whether you're doing it lying down or standing up with a head harness, it doesn't matter. You're extending your neck, and it's going to build if you apply progressive overload. So that's what I would call the substitution of certain lifts. And again, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. Provided that it's not gimmicky in any type of way, like a lot of these morons in actual gym fail compilations, there's no problem with substitution, you know? So the only issue I have with exercise creation is when you have some fucking idiot who is usually very skinny and he's doing all this functional nonsense, which is really just useless, right? And guys like that you'll see in Elgin intensity videos, lots of fucktards over there, right? As well as Facebook, you know, or Instagram. You'll see a lot of gym fail compilations. So those will be the only exceptions in which I'd be opposed to exercise creation. But other than that, what we have is invention, which the bench press would be one of those inventions, which everyone takes for granted today. The deadlift as well, because back then you would just pick up like bales of hay. You'd pick up bags of flour, barrels, things of that nature. It took the creative genius of a man who said, okay, we're going to have this Olympic barbell with this diameter of the plates, and that's going to be the deadlift range of motion, right? So even that was a creation, you know? Then, of course, we have the improvement of certain lifts, such as adding bands to certain exercises or altering the biomechanics or something like that. I use the Z-press as an example. Shrugging with bands is another example because you'll get the overspeed eccentric, which will accentuate the way to stretch on the traps. So we got improvement, and then we have substitution, which I don't really have a problem with. So the only time that invention of exercises is a problem is when a fucking moron does this, right? But if you're actually talking about a guy who has lifting experience, who knows what he's talking about, then I don't see an issue with it whatsoever. So there you go. That's my take on the invention of exercises. So that's it. I hope you took something from this video. Give me your feedback down below. I want to know what's up. And with that, I'll talk to you all next time.